There's a lot to love about the Canon EOS 1V. Build quality, shutter speed, frame rate, metering quality, and features. The EOS 1V is packed with features like my grocery basket the day after my paycheck clears. And like my grocery basket, it's nearly impossible to reach into it and quickly grab the thing that I want. So while this camera has a lot to love, ease of use is not one of those things. My loaner EOS 1V arrived the same day as the Minolta Alpha 9 that I bought for myself. These are two cameras that competed and had similar specs and capabilities. But the difference between them is astounding. The EOS 1V hides features and functions behind button press combinations and secret coded menu functions. The Minolta displays functions in the open and in a way that's very easy to access. The Minolta was designed with the user in mind. The EOS 1V was clearly designed with the software engineer in mind. With the Minolta Alpha 9, a skilled photographer could change most of the camera's settings and all of the shooting settings without removing their eye from the viewfinder. In stark contrast, the EOS 1V's biggest flaw is that any settings change, aside from whatever you have programmed the command wheel to do, requires that you drop the camera, figure out which buttons to push them, adjust some dials to pick a thing, and then go back to shooting. Meanwhile, you miss 10 great photo opportunities. Awesome. And that was really my narrative with the EOS 1V. I kept missing shots because I needed to make a functional change and had to always bring the camera away from my eye to do it. Without exception, this was the worst camera I have ever used to take sports photos. The EOS 1V was daunting, complex, confusing, and difficult to use, I felt, for the first week that I had it, and in that span of time I took 16 rolls of film, completely intimidated. I was totally lost using this camera for the first day, and I can't say, if I'm honest, that the feeling of being lost when using the EOS 1V ever fully went away. The EOS 1V, to its credit, has about as many features as a modern DSLR. To its detriment, it lacks any sort of logical interface. Anytime I wanted to change a functional setting on the 1V, I needed to refer to the manual. The manual is a huge Byzantine and complex book. If I were to make a penitentiary prisoner in the US read the manual, it would be considered cruel and unusual punishment. So this camera is not for everyone. Its interface is complex, its ergonomics bizarre, its bells and whistles all slightly off-key. But looking at the specs, it's a fantastic camera. The 1V throws more at the users than some DSLRs in 2015. In terms of capabilities, the EOS 1V outpaces all but a very small number of DSLRs that are available today on the used market. If you bought this camera and decided to use it for the rest of your life, you would want for nothing but a logical and intuitive interface. Lest you think that I hated this camera, I did not. I would recommend it to very, very few people, but it is one of the most incredible pieces of photographic equipment I've ever used. I appreciate the many, many tens of thousands of hours that clearly went into engineering this camera's performance. The Canon EOS 1V was the last of the professional-grade film cameras that Canon released, and Canon went out on a high note. Personally, I think that the A1 will always be the best film camera that they made, but I would fault no one for asserting that the EOS 1V was the best. Looking at the specs, it reads like a fanboy's wildest and most gonzo wish list, but it's sort of like an aloof professional athlete who can do anything on the field but can't coach a lesser athlete. And in a past life, I knew some pro athletes. The best players are often the worst coaches. And for all the complexity and doodads and wazoos that the EOS 1V throws at the users, none of them help any except specialist photographers obtain better shots. In fact, quite the opposite. I missed almost as many good photos as I took at my friends' softball games because I couldn't switch modes, change a setting, or adjust a control without lowering the camera, figuring out which multi-button combination to push, pushing them, adjusting some wheels, and then getting back into the viewfinder. By which point, the play I was preparing to photograph came and went while my focus was on top of the EOS 1V. Were I creating a team to play sports for profit, I'd want a pro athlete on my team. Were I creating a team to play pickup softball with, I'd want my friends on my team. And that's my take on cameras, too. I don't want a pro athlete on my team when I'm just having fun. I want a camera around my neck that is fun, accessible, enjoyable, and easy to use, and, for me, that's just not the EOS 1V. I want to thank the folks at Meta35 for loaning me the Canon EOS 1V to test and use for these and other videos.